Hello and welcome to episode 3 of this series. In this episode, we are going to talk about another type of communication, this time from the child component to the parent component. And we're going to use the output decorator for this type of communication. So basically, the goal of this episode is to learn how to send some data from a child component to the parent component. The child component in this case is going to be a new component, parent form booking form component, and the parent component is going to be the flight list component that we have been working with throughout the previous episodes. And we're going to use the output decorator, as I said, to kind of send some data from the child component to the parent component. The scenario is this: in our application, when the user clicks a flight, so the application is going to, as we developed in the previous episode, is going to kind of show the details of that selected flight. Now we want to allow the user to book, a flight. So to create a booking for a flight, we are going to, develop the booking form component. This is going to be our child component in this case, right? And this will show up when the user clicks a flight. And then the user can input the passenger ID, so their passenger ID basically, and then submit that, booking form. And that will create a booking for us. Now, the parent component, as I said, in this case, is going to be the flight list component. This component will receive the booking information based on the form that was submitted by the user and will add it to the system. In this case, it can, for example, log it, it can store it in an array, and so on. So basically, this is, again, a kind of relationship between the child and the parent component. The child is going to send some data to the parent component. So first, we are going to create the booking form component. Not create, I mean, we have created this component before. We're going to write the code for this. So we're going to add the following code to the book form component. We want to use two-way data binding. We're going to import forms module in order to be able to use the two-way data binding using ng model, as I said. And of course, we will use common module for our directives like ng4. So this is the code for this component. Again, booking form component. As you can see, we've got this, input property. We talked about input properties in the previous episode. This flight ID is going to have its value from, a parent component. And then we've got this output. So the output is going to be able to send some data, in this case, a booking, to the parent component, which will be the flight list component. We've got this, ordinary property called passenger ID. We've got this function which will handle the submission of the form. So the submission is going to do this. It's going to first check the passenger ID. If the passenger ID doesn't have any values, it's going to return. Otherwise, it's going to create a booking based on the model class we created in episode number 1. It's going to set the ID of that booking. It's going to set the flight ID based on the, input property that it has received here. It's going to set the passenger ID, and it's going to set the status to confirm. And then, as you can see here, it's going to use this booking submitted. The booking submitted is this output that we created here. So it's going to use this booking submitted, and it's going to call the emit, method. Again, booking submitted, it's going to be able to emit or send a booking to the parent component. This is the booking we have, new booking. So it's going to send the new booking to the parent component, and then it's going to reset the passenger ID. So let's go ahead to the booking form component, and I am going to create this booking form component. So this is the booking that will be sent to our parent component, and this is the way we send that booking and resetting that passenger ID. So this is it. I just need to do some imports. So import for the model class, we're going to import common module as well as ng4 module for two-way data binding. So input, let's talk about these a little bit. So this tells Angular that the parent component will provide the value for this flight ID, which is going to be of type string. We already talked about this non-null assertion operator. It means that you're basically telling Angular, don't worry about the fact that this flight ID is null because it will have a value before I use it. So the form needs to know which flight is being booked. Therefore, the parent will supply this flight ID. Again, this non-null operator, non-null assertion operator is going to tell Angular, don't worry, Angular, this will definitely be initialized before I use it. Then we've got this output. This is the topic of this episode. This is the key part of the output communication. Output allows the child component, the booking form, to emit events or data to the parent, which is the flight list. So event emitter booking means the component will emit a booking using this booking submitted. So it is like saying, I'm going to send a booking object to the parent when something happens. And that something in this case is when the form is submitted. Then we've got this property. So this is a local ordinary property inside of our component, right? And this is, the passenger ID. So basically the user will be able to enter their passenger ID to book a flight for that specific passenger. So this passenger ID will be used when we want to construct that booking object. Then we've got submit booking, which is that method. So this method handles the form submission. It checks if the passenger ID is empty. If yes, it's going to return without doing anything. Otherwise, it's going to create a new booking object of type booking. It's going to set a unique ID for that booking. It's going to, use the flight ID input, the value of that input. We're going to create that input in the template in a minute. And then it's going to use the flight ID is coming from the parent component. Sorry about that. The passenger ID is going to be used, is going to be captured from an input that we will create in the template. And then we can, hard code the confirmed, value for the status. And then we're going to emit the booking to the parent component, which in this case is the flight list. We're going to use the output we created, the emit, method, and then the object we created. So this sends the data out using the output. And then we're going to reset the passenger ID. And this is the template for this booking form component. Take a look here. We have our, directive. If the flight ID coming from our parent component has some value, we're going to render this div element. This div element, as you can see, is composed of an input. The input is using two-way data binding. Using ng model, we're binding this to the passenger ID property developed and created in the TypeScript file. And then whenever that button is clicked, we're going to call the submit booking, which is that method in our TypeScript file, to submit this booking and to send out that booking to our parent component. I've got another playlist on the channel about creating a full application using Angular. In that playlist, I've talked extensively about reactive forms and template-driven forms. If you want to know more about, for example, ng model to use two-way data binding, just take a look at that. Take a look at that playlist. Now let's go to the booking form component. Why am I getting an error here? The directive appears in imports, but it's not a standalone and can't be imported directly. It must be imported via ng model. I meant ng model, not ng form. So, okay, let me get rid of this now. ng model, it says must be an array of components directive types. ng module. I need to fix this. I need to see what the problem is. But before I do that, I'm going to go to booking form HTML. I am going to write the code. So this is the code that I just talked about. The flight ID is coming from our parent component. We're creating this input two-way data binding to bind it to the passenger ID from our TypeScript file, and this is the passenger ID I was talking about. And then we are using ng model. So ng model needs to be imported here. ng model. Let me pause the video and fix this. That was a silly mistake. I need to import forms module. forms module, not ng module. So I can get rid of this here. Take a look at the HTML, and everything seems to be okay now. Now let me continue with the notes. So ng model, two-way data binding. This is, as I said, two-way data binding. It means that the value of your input is going to be bound to the property passenger ID in your component. Any change in the input field will immediately update the value inside of the passenger ID property, and any change in the passenger ID in the component will update this input field. So it is equivalent to doing something like this. So to get the value of the input, use this property, and when the value is changed, just go ahead and update the value inside of the passenger ID. But of course, this is a more concise, cleaner, syntax. ng model using forms module. I was using ng model, and I was wrong. Forms module. So, but ng model is a shortcut syntax. It's concise, it's clean, and it combines these two, into one single kind of line of code. Now, the parent receives booking. This is the parent, flight list component. So in the flight list component, we will receive the booking. And we are going to, create, let's say, a booking list and, put that booking that we have received from our child component into that list. So let's see how it's done. This is the flight list component. As you can see, we have created this bookings property, which is an array of booking, right? And then we have a method to kind of handle whatever that child component is going to send to us. So that child component is going to send a booking, as you saw here, right? Whenever this button is clicked, right, we are going to send a booking to our parent component, booking submitted. Now, in the parent component, we need to handle that. So we have this method called handle booking submitted, which is going to receive a booking. And that booking is going to be pushed to this array, bookings array. And then we're going to do a simple logging thing as well. So let's go to the flight list component. This is the template, flight list TS. And we are going to do what? We are going to create, we are going to create an array and a method. So this is the array, and this is the method to handle whatever the, child component has sent to us. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to import this type, and we're fine for now. So then we are going to update the template for the flight list. So inside of the flight list, previously we were, rendering the child component. The child component was flight details. Now we want another child component as well, and this is the booking form component, right? We are, putting this here. Now take a look at the, booking form component. We are setting the flight ID. So remember, the flight ID was an input property for the booking form. The parent component, which in this case is the flight list, is supposed to provide that. And it is using the ID of the selected flight, which we developed in the previous episode, to set the value for this input property. And then it has this output as well. So the output is using, a set of parentheses. The name is booking submitted. Whenever this output is emitted, or whenever this output has emitted a value, we are going to use the method we just created, handle booking submitted, in our parent component to handle that output. And of course, this component is using this ngIf as well. So whenever a flight is selected, whenever a selected flight has a value, the booking form is going to go and get rendered. And then we have this piece of content as well. So as you can see here, we've got this div. If there are any bookings, if the bookings array that we have inside of the flight list component has some values, we are going to render this section. We are going to go through those bookings And for each booking, we're going to render the passenger ID as well as the flight ID associated with that booking. For each booking, we are capturing the passenger ID and the flight ID. So let me go to the template file for the flight list component. We are rendering, as you can see, the available flights. Whenever a flight is selected, we are going to render the details of that flight, and then we can go ahead and add our booking form, and then render the bookings that are confirmed. So inside of the booking form, we of course need to, not the booking form, inside of the flight list TS, we need to import the booking form component and the flight list. Let's go to flight list now, flight list template, and we're fine. So if I click one flight, I will see the details. Now I can go ahead and, kind of enter a passenger ID, submit a booking, and then I will get the confirmed bookings for the selected ID using this, passenger ID and flight ID. And of course, I can go to my console to probably see the log here as well. So it says flight list booking received in parent. Good. Now let's get to the notes now. So in Angular, this special variable, by the way, this is something I wanted to talk about. As you can see here, we are passing this $event to the method that we created in our parent component. Handle booking submitted is inside of our parent component and is expecting a booking object. So this event is used to capture and pass the data emitted from a child component's event. In this case, it's a booking object. This is the event handler inside of our parent component. So in our case, the booking submitted is a custom event emitted by the child component. This is the child component. And the handle booking submitted event is the method in our parent component. The parent component is the flight list component that is going to handle that event emitted by our child component. And that $event contains the value that the child component emitted. So in our case, it's an object of type booking. So again, what does this $event contain? As I said, it contains the payload passed by the child when it calls something like this. So when it is sending that created booking from the child component. So $event will be the booking object emitted from our booking form component, from our child component. And that object might, for example, look like something like this. And then we can run and test. We can use ngserve. As you saw, we can select a flight, see the details of that flight, enter a passenger ID, and then submit the booking form. And then that booking is created. It is confirmed by default, and it is going to be shown inside of our parent component, the flight list component. So it's coming from the child component to the parent via output. And that was it. So in this episode, we use output and event emitter to establish another form of communication from our child component to our parent component. The child component is booking form. The parent is flight list. And parent is responsible for handling that event. Whenever that child component has emitted that value, the parent is going to handle that. And the way we handle that is that we create an event handler in our parent component, and we pass whatever the child component has emitted to that event handler, and we kind of handle that output property from our child component using the event handler we have created in our parent component. And that was it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If that's the case, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.